blessing and releasing can be really joyful. Like celebrating letting people go as an act of agency.
I love burning paper. You write about them and you fucking burn it and you're like,
because
we're like freezer spells. And then she's like, well, wait, I don't know if I got into that.
You never cut a guy's strand of hair while he was sleeping and then burned it in a fire later? Lily, get with it. We are here with dating expert, feminist dating expert, you could say, LILY WOMBLE. Thank you so much for coming to the show. You're the author of Thank You More, Please. You have a company called datebrazen, where is it matchmaking? What is this company?
No, it's helping people become their own expert matchmaker. So I
love that.
Yeah, because I started as a matchmaker. I was like setting dates up in New York, and I was the third most successful out of 160 at the national firm. It was amazing. Thank you, brag. And then I realized that my own love life was a dumpster fire. So I was like setting dates up and then crying on my boyfriend's bathroom floor.
Oh, why?
It was my so I was like a late bloomer, and
what are we talking? Late bloomer,
like 25. Didn't have sex till I was 25. Didn't have a relationship as an adult until then. I felt light years behind my peers because I'm from the South, and by then most people are like
got
married
grandkids
with kids.
by 25.
Yes.
Yeah. Why a late bloomer in that area?
Evangelical.
Oh, word evangelical. That one's intense as hell.
Oh.
No pun intended.
Abstinence only, state sanctioned sex education card. Where I had
a card?
Yeah, in
Lily.
7th grade. We were given a credit card like
7th grade.
Mm-hmm. And we had to take a sex education, quote unquote, course where they took 2 pieces of clear packing tape, and the woman, took the packing tape, was like, look at you before you have sex. Have you ever heard of this?
Yeah, and it gets less sticky the more you stick it on.
Oh,
wait, I actually haven't heard of this.
Oh, you haven't heard of that?
No.
Oh, I grew up in Virginia. I heard of that.
Where in Virginia?
Chesapeake.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
My husband went to UEA.
Yeah, nice.
But you put it on your arm, and they're like, this is you having sex.
Oh.
And then they take it off, and they're like, look how dirty you are.
Oh.
And then they take 2 pieces, and they do the same to both pieces, and see if you have sex before marriage, you don't stay together as a couple.
Oh.
Right, because the tape doesn't stick to each other. Yeah.
Because of this packing tape.
And it's so evil to do to children because they're going to believe you because we don't know anything about the world yet. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, you have to be a pretty self-actualized child to get that information and go, I don't know why, but that's fucked up and I'm not believing it.
Well, and also at the time, I think the statistic in Alabama, where I was or Mississippi, it was this, but it was like 10% of 11-year-olds had sex. Or something like that at the time. I don't quote me, but we already were learning about sex, so they were teaching us this and it was just so fucked up. And as that child, I was like, yeah, I'm never gonna have sex till I get married. I was very proud of it.
Sure,
right.
And then coming into adulthood, like deconstructing my religious identity and deconstructing, my ideas about sexuality, I was ready to get it in, but I didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I was just bumbling around, going on dates with anybody and being like, you like me? Let's go.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I, 2 different men on 2 different occasions, I told them I want to have fun, but I'm not ready to have sex. And they were like officially proposing to take my virginity. And then the next day they changed their mind. 2 different times that happened. It was very odd. What
did they say? Do you remember what they said? Verbatim?
I would love to be the one who.
And were you
sex
still
with
in
you.
the South?
No, I was in New York.
Oh.
And San Francisco.
I mean, taking someone's virginity is rare. I've never done it.
Well, in your mid-20s, it's like, you what?
Yeah.
You
Right.
know,
Yeah.
So I was, discerning, is this right for me? And then I'd be like, okay, maybe, let's do it. And then both times they were either they just said I'm not into it anymore because I was so emotionally intense.
Oh, okay. That's why. But
And
then
they
you
were-
were still emotionally intense when they said, I want to do it.
Then
You
they
didn't change.
chickened out. I have no idea, but I made up a story.
Okay.
Right. Because of how I was told as a child that I was too much. My mom told me at age 12.
That you were too much?
You're too much. You're going to have a hard time finding a husband.
Oh, gross.
See, that means
Lily.
you're fun.
Yeah, exactly. That means you're a fucking Aquarius.
Yeah.
Yes.
It really does.
So I
jealous.
carried all that into adulthood. I felt completely behind. I was bumbling around. I was going out with guys that I shouldn't have been wasting my time with.
Yeah.
But I ended up
Good
in
news
this-
is you do that even if you aren't raised evangelical Christian, I will say.
Yeah, correct.
I started getting it in at 15 and my first 5 years in New York, all that. So,
Yeah.
you know.
Well, I think it's pretty universal now, I know.
Yeah.
But I, ended up in this relationship where we loved each other, but he said all the right things, but did none of the right things, didn't show up for me emotionally, treated me like a burden, said I can't be in a monogamous relationship. I have to be open after deciding to be monogamous.
My fave. Oh,
and I
Yeah,
put
you're
up
really
with
dating
it.
the lowest of the low.
Yeah, I like was like, okay, I can be open-minded. I can make my list of like what non-monogamy looks like. I can do this research and be like, I want to be the
catering.
primary partner, and here's what
Wow.
yeah, it's a. And then of course he didn't want an actual relationship. He just wanted the benefit of he wanted to fuck me.
He wanted a fuck buddy.
And he wanted my emotional availability, but
Exactly.
didn't want any.
That's even
to
worse. I'm like,
contribute
use me for my body, but not for my emotional.
Yeah, not for
Acuity.
my brain. Don't use me for my brain. You
So,
don't deserve that.
I needed money in New York. I found this side hustle as being a matchmaker. Like these firms hire
Wow.
people. I know. So back to the matchmaking.
I want to know
thing.
how you get
Side
into the
hustle.
business of matchmaking. I'm very fascinated by this occupation.
Okay, so there are big firms out there that
Okay.
are basically like tech companies that are also matchmaking companies.
Weird.
E. Jean Carroll
Oh, yeah.
Yes, know her well.
founded
Of her.
the company that I worked for.
Wow.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I met her a couple times.
You met her?
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
She cool.
She was cool. She was
Yeah.
like
She's been through some
really,
shit.
really like creative and fascinating and warm and all these things. So, and she was in New York, like, you know, like an older woman in New York.
Oh, yes. Probably has cool glasses.
Oh
and
my
fucking
God,
a
great
purse.
Chunky costume jewelry.
Yes,
Yes.
always chunky costume. I'm going to
100%.
be that woman when I'm older.
So they hire people who just like are like referrals, and then it's a sink or swim job. You don't have much training. It's just sort of like, are you emotionally intelligent? Can you pick it up on the job?
Yeah.
Here's like 2 weeks of training. Go after it. Set up some dates.
Yeah.
And I tried for a year. I was doing okay, but it wasn't until like year 2 that I hit my stride, and I was just really good at asking people the right questions, really hearing what they meant beneath their responses.
Oh, men and women?
Men and women. I had
Okay.
over 1,000 phone calls with potential dates for my clients.
Oh, wow.
And I had to get really good at asking the deeper questions that gauged whether or not someone was emotionally available
Right.
and like ready. And I talked to some abhorrent men.
Let's go. What'd you hear? That sticks with you.
One of my favorite questions to ask, and I put this in my book, Thank You More Please, of like qualifying, disqualifying questions to gauge whether or not somebody's right or wrong for you.
Okay.
Because in the words of Dr. Maya Angelou, when someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. So just like ask them the right questions, see their answer. I asked this man who is a New Yorker in his 50s. I'm trying to set up a woman in her 50s.
Zaddy.
And I say, like, what made you laugh hardest lately? This is a really telling question to see what comes to
Great
mind.
question.
Yeah, I
As
love
stand-up
it.
comedians, we love that. Yeah.
Yeah. And this man's answer, like some people's answer was like, I love rewatching The Office. Fine. Oh, my nephews are so funny. Like you're looking for these deeper things. He said, oh yeah, I know. I was on a boat last week with my son and our friends and a group of fat women in bikinis.
I knew it was going to be something like this.
Drove by. And I said to the group, baby got back? And I wanted to vomit bile.
So what made him laugh was something derogatory towards women and his own joke.
Oh my God.
That's
you deserve
double.
no dates, sir.
Asshole. And I got
What
off
a
the phone
great
swiftly.
question.
Penis should be in a cage.
That's a great question.
You should be allowed to fuck.
No.
Oh, it should be like they should do the Renaissance. Like they used to have a
Yes.
cage for the vagina, but you
Yes.
do it for a penis.
For a penis.
Believe me, I put on his record, like, do not set this man up.
Yeah, with
But
anybody.
I learned, like, a lot of skills matchmaking that I wasn't ingesting in my own love life,
Yeah.
right? Like, I was,
Yeah.
like, settling for the crumbs while telling my clients, you deserve more. So after, like, 2 years of doing that, I was no longer, it was just sort of my breaking point. I was having panic attacks. I was not, I was in
So
therapy
you were living
for the
out of your
first time.
integrity.
Yes.
Yeah.
And my therapist, thank God, helped me find the courage to break it off with this person who was my like first adult love, first person I ever had sex with. But then I was like, then what? Like, how am I never gonna fucking settle again? Because
Yeah.
I know that matchmaking is this first date solution. I know
Right.
that I'm not gonna have a problem finding a first date. I'm gonna have a problem not settling again.
Yeah.
And so I looked around for like, what do I do? My therapist hadn't dated in 30 years. Besides like get on a dating
not
app.
as her.
Right. Besides like, getting on a dating app, like what is she going to tell me?
Sure. Yeah.
My friends and family gave me dating advice like, are you sure you're not being too picky?
The being
fucking
too
hate
picky
when people say that.
is so crazy because I've got that a lot, and I was like, please be picky. Actually, my note to myself in my next lifetime
Pickier.
is be pickier.
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. So I knew that wasn't going to work. And I just saw implicitly how everything that I'd been taught about dating was rooted in this like patriarchal
Girl.
dating advice, more interested
We got
in women
tricked.
more interested in women settling and exhausting themselves, right? What is the numbers game? It is going on more dates than you need to, not trusting your instinct, and exhausting yourself so your higher functioning shuts down so you're more likely to settle.
Oh, yeah, the higher functioning part. Yeah.
So I was like, okay, well, I'm going to figure this shit out myself. Yeah. And I started coaching myself. I was being mentored by a coach who was like changing my life. And
mentored about being in a relationship, like how to be in a relationship?
How to heal my you're too much story. How to finally want what I want, how to ask for what I wanted, right? Like she was coaching me through this.
Yeah.
And I realized how awesome coaching was in addition to therapy. And so I started to like heal with self-compassion. I started to own what I wanted. So great. It's one of my favorite things. I started to claim my own essence-based preferences, which I write about in the book, or like, what do you want to feel like in the right relationship? And how can you use that as a settle-proofing force instead of a rigid checklist?
Yeah, my therapist has, years ago had me write out, like envision yourself in the relationship you want to be in, and what does that feel like? And I was like, well, I thought we were talking about my dad's death, but okay. She would
feel about that, friend.
Like, it's like people like you're not obsessed with being in a relationship, but the people around you are obsessed with you being in a relationship. That's one of my favorites.
I think that's also the patriarchy, right? Like that's also like
I hate when women, and as a woman, I've totally done this. Like we continue the patriarchal kind of bullshit expectations.
Well, like single women are less valuable than coupled women, less interesting, less, and it's everywhere, especially
we have
right
more
after
money, we're happier. Yeah.
Single women are by far more interesting. I'm in a relationship, and I can say single women are by far more interesting. Their stories are better. My stories have really gone on a decline.
Same.
Well, I think that women get to want what they want. And if women want a relationship, great. If they don't, great. If they do and they're fine not
as long
dating
as you're being
right
authentic about it.
Absolutely. I'm not going to sit here and be like, romantic relationship is the gold standard of human existence.
Right.
I think that it's a part of a rich life if you want that.
Yep.
Exactly.
So becoming a feminist dating coach became like really natural for me. I was like, I want to help people create dating lives that feel joyful as fuck, that feel free, in which they don't ever have to settle again, like I needed help with.
Yeah.
And then the benefit of like having this dating life for myself was that I felt free. I was like giving my number to cute waiters. I was flirting. I was dressing in a way that made me feel like sexy and alive. And the bonus was that I met the love of my life, Chris.
Fuck yeah.
Who is not somebody who I might have swiped. Like he's incredible. He's hot. He's amazing. I think that I would have gotten in my own way before.
Yeah.
And then I quit matchmaking about 7 years ago and started datebrazen.
That's amazing. So I want to go back to, you said you stopped buying your own story that you were too much.
Yeah.
That's a big task. What helped you along the way? Like what words were you given as guidance, or like what did you have to keep saying and saying over to yourself to eventually it sunk in for you to break free from that story?
I took a picture of a Subway ad, like an ad on the subway that said, if I'm too much, then you're not enough for me. And that just like those words were just really great. I had never had that thought before. So that sort of unlocked something for me.
That's
to
great.
just frame it around, like centering myself as the answer and centering people that didn't want to be around me, like decentering them. I think that that's what the decenter men conversation sometimes like leaves out, which is like, how are you centering the men who are wrong for you? And how can you recenter yourself as like the main character of your own fucking life? So that really helped. I also just realized that my mom telling me at age 12 that I was too much was so much more about her patriarchal conditioning and the way she was taught to shrink than it was about me. And I had to grieve that. And then I just started.
You really properly healed this.
Oh, yeah.
You did all the steps.
And still happening, right? Like I still had moments of feeling like, oh shit, I just was way too much in that conversation. And then I have to recalibrate and like practice self-compassion. Like I do my own work, you know?
Yeah. Interrogating your thoughts is like a huge part of it.
What are y'all's too much stories? Like I'm sure knowing
she doesn't have any, I don't think.
I mean, I am too much, but I try to be.
Yeah.
Great.
A lot of times I go, that's too much. Should I do more? That's me.
Push harder?
Yeah.
I love that.
I mean, since I was a little girl, I would like, we all have like a dress up chest. So I would like walk around my neighborhood in a ball gown to get the attention of the neighbors. I mean, I don't even know. My mom is always like, oh, your poor brother's going to need therapy. Cause like my little brother, it's just like when you have a sibling who constantly needs attention, but it wasn't even like a need for attention. It was just like, why why is everyone being so boring? We've got one life.
I know.
Let's really fucking do it.
Yeah.
Let's really
zhuzh
do
it
it.
up.
I was Cher since I was 6, you know?
Yeah, lives can be works of art.
Absolutely.
And I'm very determined to make my life work of art. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, as is Corinne, as are you, which we are doing. Yeah, mine was definitely not. Well, yeah, I got the too much thing, but I think it was a lot of mental illness in my household. So but also I think I was most scarred in my life when I was a teenager than when I was a child. Like we talk about childhood trauma a lot. I think most of my trauma happened from like 12 to 18. Mom would try to like kill herself every time I graduated or every time I made a big move. So, but you're totally right. The key, what you said about your mom is like realizing this woman did not have it well. If she did, she wouldn't have had these reactions.
Right.
And so also grieving is so helpful to grieve like for the younger you that needed to hear something different. Like that's really great. Like because all those voices in your head can get nasty.
Well, the reparenting work is just so tough.
It's
and
exhausting.
But dating in a way that feels joyful like requires it. Being in a loving romantic relationship with another person requires it.
And also, if you think about it, like being in a relationship is like, I know you're not a parent to your spouse, nor should you be, but there are moments where like I'll take, like my boyfriend will take care of me and it feels, this is kind of fucked up, but like it feels a little dad and daughter, but like not in a porn category way, not in a fucked up way, but in like a, he's a lot older than me, so maybe that's why. But like, but then I'll take care of him in the ways that feel like, I guess nurturing is more, not
well,
parenting.
you're giving yourself and each other what you didn't get. And I think that's just like healing.
Yeah, so healing.
Yeah.
And relationships can really be conduits to like major healing that can be tricky to do by yourself. And bad relationships, though, can also be very healing afterwards. Like
After
the bad
many
relationships you were in. Like,
months, years.
Yeah.
I just forgot my ex's last name.
Whoa.
Thank you. I realized it the other day and I told
that.
Chris, my husband, I was like, I just forgot his last name. This is wild. And my brain was like trying to search for it for days, just like on the background. I was like, this is wild. I spent so many years grieving this and obsessing over this and asking myself, like, what the fuck did I do wrong to attract this? And like, why did I put up with this and blaming myself? And then just like years of healing. And
and it's so funny. You were blamed when you were in school. You were blamed for not, like, if you were a whore, you're blamed for that. Like, my God, you were getting it from school. You were getting it from your parents. Like, evangelical, that is no joke, dude.
Yeah.
I'm not religious, but I know a little bit about that from living in the South. Whew, they oust you when you act against their tenements.
Yeah, 100%.
How did you find joy in dating? Because we get written about that a lot. Like, I hate dating. It's so stressful. And I find myself saying like, yeah, dating sucks. But like, it doesn't have to.
It doesn't have to. There are some parts of it that are just vulnerable. And of course, when vulnerability comes up, we're not in control of the outcome. So then like difficult feelings come up. But in the book, I really hammer home, like, how can you release the stories that your version of you're too much, right? First and foremost. And then how can you like recenter yourself by claiming your essence-based preferences? Like really, instead of, obsessing about like, here's what I'm a no to. I don't want anybody who's emotionally unavailable anymore. I don't want, like, finding what you're a yes to.
Yeah.
Yeah, because then that aligns you with the energy and the vibration of like more the type of relationship you want.
Kind of getting off on the vision a little bit, like suspending your disbelief because so many people are like, it doesn't exist. Well,
you use your imagination to get to these negative points. You can also use your imagination to get to these positive places.
Yeah, and acknowledging like negativity bias. Your brain is going to go to the negative first to protect you from a future that you don't want. So I think self-compassion comes in to really say like, hey, you're normal, you're safe. It's okay that you're going to the negative. Let's just take a moment to care for that version of yourself who's afraid.
Yeah.
And then say, what else might be true?
Yeah.
What am I a yes to? Recentering your desire instead of centering the fear that it might not exist.
And being like gentle with it. Like, what if I met a guy that was amazing in all of the ways I want? Like the what if.
Yeah.
Like that just gets your brain out of that.
Well, and that's where the
negativity.
Thank You More Please challenge comes in, which is one of my favorite things. It's what the book is named after, which is how, like, acknowledging that some hard shit has happened. Like, yes, you might have been like broken up with, rejected, like traumatic shit has happened. And let's go out of our house and look for tiny slivers of evidence that what you want exists. A cute conversation with your barista. Thank you more, please.
Yeah.
A flirty interaction at work.
Right.
Thank you more, please. Like, it's Baader-Meinhof phenomenon, which is a very sciencey word for like red car theory, which is when you're looking for a red car, you just start to see more of them. It's not that more red cars exist. It's that what you're paying attention to amplifies.
Yeah.
And so Thank You More Please is about like letting your brain know that there is evidence. And when you like acknowledge it with that verbal thank you more please, when you have that ritual, your hope starts to increase authentically instead of doing toxic positivity, which is what I see a lot of people
toxic
doing.
Positivity is bad.
And then I think that like blessing and releasing can be really joyful. Like celebrating letting people go as an act of agency.
Yeah.
Love letting people go.
Yeah.
Is
love
really
burning
great.
paper. You write about them and you fucking burn it and you're like, oh.
Because
We're like freezer spells, and then she's like, "Well, wait, I don't know if I got into that." Make it as much easier you need it to be.
You never cut a guy's strand of hair while he was sleeping and then burned in a fire later? Lily, get with it.
Thank you more, please.
Yeah. But it's also too, I think that the thank you more please challenge is it's where woo-woo meets science in my opinion, because it's like, I don't know if you guys have ever been like just having like you're cranky that day and your attitude sucks and you overhear the shittiest conversations and you see the shitty, like you see a woman at CVS like slap the shit out of her kid, like, and everything in your day, it just gets like worse and worse because you're in this the bubble you're in is just a shit one.
Yeah.
It's a shit bubble.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's true that a lot of like for women who date men, most men are going to be wrong. Like a lot of men need to do so much fucking work, and there's a reason that the data shows that single men are the loneliest group.
Yeah,
they're a growing lonely group.
It makes me sad too, but then they're like, man, they did that to themselves.
Well, and people can choose to break legacies, right? Like, so for example, celebrating blessing and releasing is like, think about the legacies of women in your life and my life who literally could not be single because they didn't have economic mobility to do so.
Or just the culture that you're just expected. Being expected to have a life, like a certain life accomplishment in quotes, at this stage, like that is enough. In the South, you don't even have to be super religious to be married by 23. 100%. It's crazy.
I just read recently, and there's kind of like, there's chatter about whether or not this is like the true, a true story, but there is like kind of folklore that women's clothing didn't have pockets originally because women didn't have any stuff to keep. And I was like, just fucking stab me.
God damn it.
Just stab me.
Shit.
Everything sucks.
Because I actually don't like dresses with pockets. I think it ruins the form, but now I like them.
I love dresses
because people will be like, oh, I love a dress. They'll do like wedding dresses with pockets now. And I was like, you know what? I do like pockets now because it's fighting the patriarchy.
So one of my favorite TV shows, this is a very deep cut. One of my favorite TV shows growing up was on PBS.
Oh.
It's called The 1900s House.
Oh my gosh, I never even heard of this.
It was very
Sounds fun.
Oh, it was so fun. I had the double VHS set to rewatch it, and it was 2000, like 1999 to 2000, and this British family went like back in time, and it was like documenting 3 months of them living in a 1900s house. And the day that she got a bicycle, the mom got a bicycle, she was like, "This is freedom."
Yeah,
because that's all that women had.
She got divorced.
Like we literally, she
and
cycled.
She was gonna go right to the courts.
But it was like a whole fucking episode of her getting a bicycle. It's like the dregs that women have had to settle with.
Yeah.
And I'm a white woman with a lot of underprivilege.
Yeah, you
like
got some
women of color and black women who've had to literally like settle for the dregs of because the world is white supremacist and racist and like the
I learned the other day
one
one of the reasons why we don't have healthcare, universal healthcare, is for racist reasons, because this German fucking author was really gunning for it, and he was saying, like, there was an excerpt from the book of like, you don't want the lower races to have access to healthcare because then they will multiply.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it was appalling, and you're like, Jesus Christ, this country's built on racism.
Well, and joyful dating. No,
I love how you brought it back.
Yeah.
No, I think that like really acknowledging the hard shit and be like, yes, we live in a fucked up society that has treated us like garbage.
Yeah.
And depending on your level of privilege, even more like garbage. Both and. How can you radically claim your agency insofar as you can control who you spend your time with, how you set boundaries with the wrong people for you, how you ask bolder questions to cut through the bullshit
Give us some
quicker.
Can you give us some examples of these bolder questions?
I want people to open dating app conversations with a question like, what's bringing you joy lately?
Yeah. Now, I can't imagine asking that to a man.
Yeah,
I gotta be honest.
How do you make that a little more like stand-up comedian friendly for
How
someone
would
who
you
has like
reword it for yourself?
Like
That's just-
What I would say, like, what made you happy this week?
what made you laugh until
What made you laugh?
peed?
Yeah, what made you laugh?
yeah.
Some
You
people
cater
ask,
to your
like,
language,
what could you
right.
talk about for hours? Like, what have you,
Yeah.
whatever your words are.
Right.
Use your words. But I love that question because joy is connective. The
Yeah.
right people, even if they're having a hard week or a hard month, they'll be able to be like, that's self-care.
Yeah,
Knowing what
yeah.
brings you joy is like gauging whether or not they take care of themselves, gauging whether or not they're in
that's a
touch with
good-
themselves.
Yeah.
If I went into your bedroom, what would I see so much of that I thought you had a problem?
Ooh, that's a very Corinne question. And then you would love it. You would get so turned on.
Well, I'm interested, like with what people are obsessed with, because I really need someone who's extremely passionate about something, and it doesn't have to be something that's of interest of me. I just need to know they have something that they're passionate about in their life that's not like making money.
I think it's a great qualifier, disqualifier.
Like
and then
something else.
If people treat the question like funnily and you like their answer, it's like
Yeah,
a cool
yeah.
funny,
Yeah.
then let's keep going. But if they treat it like LOL, I don't know, or like
then-
condoms, or like whatever their answer to that question
You know what?
would be,
A lot of guys would answer condoms.
they would, and they would be disqualified.
Yeah,
you know
yeah.
what I'm saying? Because
You're
unless
giving
you
them
want
opportunities to
hook
show
up.
them who show me who you are. And I
Yes.
want to give you some opportunities
Yes.
to do that.
So
Yeah.
in the
That's a
book,
great one.
in like the whole chapter is a list of 50 plus qualifying, disqualifying
Amazing.
questions organized by preference. I'm so freaking type A.
Yeah.
So based on what I did as a matchmaker, asking those like questions early, I just put them all in the book so people could look at like, okay, what's my preference? What do I want? Family oriented, growth mindset,
Right.
hilarious. Like, what is your preference? And then what questions can you ask to gauge whether or not somebody meets your preference, at least at a level 1?
Right. And I love this because I think like so often, especially like women who date men are going to go out and be like, men suck. But it's like, are you asking the right questions? How are
True.
you showing up to the date? Are you being interesting?
Yeah.
I read a whole piece not too long ago, basically about like, maybe
it's you that
you're
sucks.
being boring on dates, you know? And I was just like, I really love this because
Yeah.
the only thing we have control over is ourselves. So we need to make sure that we're showing up even when we're tired.
Yeah.
Like, because if you're tired and you're not going to show up as your best self, or even like, you know, you're a woman, you could show up at 60% and still really
It's still
bring
pretty
it.
great. Yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
yeah.
why don't waste the other person's time.
There's also emails we've gotten, and I've totally been this on a first date where like you were so great on the
Yeah.
date that like it was a fun time, but then you go home and you realize, wait, I was fun. You
you had fun with
Yes.
you.
And I have fun with me on dates regardless of how they go. And because we're stand-up comedians, we have a little bit of a loophole here with like a bad date is bring it on.
You're
Let's
doing a
go.
tight 15, but like at them. You know what I'm saying? So,
Yeah.
and it's fun because you're hilarious and
Yeah,
talented.
and also human behavior is just some people do the wildest shit. Like that guy that answered that fucking question with like seeing these overweight women in bikini. Like what? I almost want to go on a date with that guy to just go. What do you got? Show me who you are. Well, I want to see more.
That's true.
I want to see more of you. Let's go.
Yeah, I do think that women need to watch it when they're trying to teach men how to be better on dates.
Ooh, I love that.
Because that's unnecessary emotional labor. I think really
Yeah.
looking at the baggage that the unnecessary emotional labor women were taught to do in order on a date, like ask more questions, smile more, whatever.
Yeah.
And then to the point about like maybe you're boring on a date, I think that a lot of people come in with so much fear and like nervousness and like judgment of themselves and of the other person that I have a really great tool for that to really like release the self-judgment and release the judgment of the other person, just go in and have a fucking good time. And it's called brazen bragging.
Okay.
It's chapter 3.
I like anything with bragging in the title.
Yeah.
I know, it's so great. So bragging
it's not a
is
humble brag, it's a
not
brazen brag.
bro bragging. It's not like, here's my stock portfolio that
Right.
we love
Right.
to make money.
Right.
It's not like, here's how I'm better than you, like sucking all the air out of the room.
Right.
Which
What a
a
way to
lot of
date.
people were taught is bragging. It's
Right.
like adding breath to the conversation. So if I asked you, like, what are you really proud of this week? Or like, what
That's
are you?
a great question.
Right? Like, and you knowing your own answer. And so before a date.
Setting them up, setting it up so that you can answer a question with flying colors.
Yeah.
Love that.
But also too, like if they go, I jerked off in under 10 seconds. Like,
Oh my God.
okay. That's
Oh my God.
What a wiener.
love a question that gives somebody an opportunity to show you who they are.
Yes.
Like, those are the best.
And before a date to like really ground yourself in like, what am I bringing to the table? and then what might they be bringing to the table. Write out 20 things you love about yourself in 2 minutes. Like try that before a date. I call it 20 and 2, just to like get into the mode of I'm awesome and let's see what this person's bringing to the table, not in a judgmental way of yourself or them, just like let's see how we can connect or not.
There's also ways that I found myself, and I think a lot of women do this, where I judge too much on dates. Like sometimes I'm like, just one thing they say or how they said it, I'm like, nah, and like I'll write people off for like tiny things that I'm like, maybe I shouldn't do that.
Well, I think that's the practice of like asking a follow-up question.
Yeah.
Like if you're turned off by their answer.
Yeah, you got to pull a clarifying card.
Yeah.
That's the tarot version.
Using my own ways on me. I like that.
Yes, it's pulling a clarifying card. I love that.
Very wise.
Yeah, I love asking like, wait, what did you mean by that?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
You know?
Right.
I just like
Women should ask men that more.
100%.
What do you really mean by that?
What do you mean by that?
I want to get more questions. Yeah.
What do you mean by that? That's a great question. What do you mean by that? Fucking. Yeah. That's a great one.
I also love when you said going in with positivity, right? So that was something that, I kind of reframed a couple of years ago, just like going in with the things that you do want rather than things you don't want. That also aligns with a concept that, I don't want to say introduced by, obviously I kind of knew it in the back of my head, but the book Calling in the One kind of brought it to the top of my brain a little bit more, which is like you could very well end up with someone who on paper and even looks wise is not who you thought you would end up with. And I know you mentioned that your husband, I almost said current husband. What is my problem? I was like,
my first husband.
I love to say current husband.
I say current boyfriend. I'm like, what are you saying?
That's
Shut
my
the fuck up.
Yeah. So, and I know you mentioned kind of in passing that your husband is maybe not someone who you would have swiped on before you had done the work on yourself. So in what ways is he not who you thought?
He is so amazing. He did ask me a couple of years ago, what do you mean by that?
Yeah.
Why do
I'm
you
always
keep
so
saying
curious.
that? No, but I moved to New York to do musical theater. I moved to like 10 years ago. It did not work out. I did not like it. I wanted to make more money. I wanted to be more stable. I wanted to be in more control of my destiny. He was an actor. And I met him and I was like, I had just left this profession. I wanted to be with somebody who was like maybe in a more stable job, who had a more stable life, who maybe was more, I was not established at all. And he was at the beginning of his journey as well. So I was just like, I think getting in my own way with my conception of like, got to be this, this, and this, and that would be over functioning.
Yeah, and kind of how you judge others is how you judge yourself even worse.
Yeah,
you know, so
100%.
like we can be very judgy to these people, but then on the other hand, it is high stakes because. Like if I'm going on a date, it's usually not to like fuck you. It's usually to see like if could this be a relationship. And I don't think people often give enough credence to the fact that like your romantic partner, even if you're only with them for 5 years, you're spending most of your time with that person. Their vibe matters.
Well, that's why it's important to. What did you just?
No, I was just thinking about all the people I've spent 5 years with.
Oh yeah,
or even 2.5.
Yeah, I mean, same. I think that's why it's so important to know the essence of the right relationship. That's what I mean by essence-based preferences, and why I like really hammer it home because like Chris made me feel the way I needed and wanted to feel in the right relationship. That's how I knew that like on paper shit, the like good on paper stuff that I was like iffy on with. I was like, does he meet on paper? When I felt the way I wanted to feel, safe, held, seen, inspired, understood, it was like, oh, you're my person.
Yeah.
Versus looking for somebody good on paper only, who then in that relationship it feels like shit or lonely.
Yeah. Oh my God, feeling lonely with somebody worse. I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy.
Yeah.
That's the worst feeling. Being in a relationship and you feel lonely. Were you scared when you started to fall in love with Chris?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
How did you handle that?
He asked me out the day my ex and I broke up.
Ooh, he has
so
spidey
he
senses.
knew. Well, our mutual friend told him.
Or
and
that.
he
he's got a
shot
friend.
his shot very
Whoa,
quickly.
very quickly.
I was like, Chris. I asked him the other night. I was like, what's going on, man?
Yeah.
Like, but he and I were in the same circle. We met in person because I did improv in San Francisco. I made a friend. She introduced me to all of her friends in New York. Their friends introduced me to their friends who introduced me to Chris.
Cool. Okay.
So it was like IRL dating, and why I'm very confident that it can work. And I created a whole strategy around it that's in the book, and we can talk about it. But Chris asked me out. He didn't ask me out. He just texted me like, "Hey, I have a funny story. Like, call me sometime." I was like, I just broke up with this man.
Oh, I like that. Wait, I like that.
Yeah. It was,
Manipulative, but not too much.
Yeah, in the way that I want to be manipulated.
Yeah.
and I said to my friend who was like very kindly making me charcuterie after this breakup, and like I was hanging out with her and like she was helping me like heal. I looked at her, I was like, I feel like this guy is something. Like I feel like there's something, but I'm not ready for this. Cut to me just telling him like flat out, please don't text me anymore. Like I don't want to casually text you. I don't want to go out with you. I'm not ready. I'm still healing. He was like, okay. And then a couple months later,
response.
Wait,
also
what?
okay, and then honoring that sexiest response.
Yeah.
very sexy, honoring boundaries. And then we started hanging out in a group like once or twice. And y'all are going to think this is cuckoo bananas, but you said you're a woo-woo, so I'm going to go with it.
We probably won't. Yeah.
I was hanging out in a group and Chris was like fucking. You know what I'm saying? Like he was having a great time.
Good for Chris.
Good for
He was
Chris.
having a
I
great
love a
time.
guy who fucks.
And Chris, I hope you don't mind that I shared that. You know,
No, that's
he was having a great.
That's a compliment. My boyfriend was fucking when we met,
He was
and I was like,
so
good for you.
hot and like, and he was talking about Tinder. And we were in this group hang, and he was like, I'm not going to meet the mother of my children on Tinder. And my body said to me, no, because you're the mother of his children.
Whoa.
Wild.
Whoa.
Very wild. And then the next 2 nights, I had consecutive nights of dreams of us being partners and holding hands. Oh. And I woke up both nights with the sun shining on my face.
Okay.
Okay.
Women, all women are psychic. I mean, all people are psychic, but women are just more encouraged to deal with it. But every time before I sleep with somebody, I feel like I'm like, oh, if it's never, I either have a dream that I slept with them. Remember the guy that we worked with? That
Yes.
I had a dream about him, and I was like, so I'm totally different after that. Or you get these passing thoughts of like, you're going to date him for 5 years or something. And it's like weird. It's so weird.
So weird. So then after the second night of dreams, I was like, okay, universe. And
2 nights in a row.
I do feel like I am psychic in some ways.
Cool.
Like I was on a podcast interview and this woman was talking about the situationship she was in and how she traveled for him. And I was like, so how was that trip to Florida?
Nice.
And she was like,
yeah, you're really
I
intuitive.
didn't tell you that I went to Florida. What are you
Hell
talking
yeah.
about? Anyway.
Yeah.
I texted Chris the next day. I was like, you want to go to brunch? And he was like, yes.
Aw.
And then we started falling in love very quickly and it was very scary. And I didn't know how to trust myself and I was still getting over my ex. And this is how I know you cannot say the wrong thing to the right person because I talked about my ex for about 30 minutes on that date.
Yeah.
Like the first date with Chris. And he held my hands and like listened and asked me good questions. I couldn't say the wrong thing to the right person. Also, 2 months later when he said, hey, Lily, it would be really great if we could not talk about your ex. Please, like, can we talk about like us?
Yeah.
You have a therapist, you have friends. Like, I just am uncomfortable.
Wow.
And so the
Healthy
right
boundaries.
person will also be able to be an
To
adult who
handle
has
that.
boundaries.
Right.
Right. Oh, that's a great, you can't say the wrong thing to the right person. That's beautiful. I love that.
I'm going to say a note that's only for women, because but I would not advise women to sit and listen to a man talk about their ex in the same way, just because of that thing that you talked about with like the emotional. But I would just be like a little more sus of it. But I love that story for you.
Well,
No, but
I don't.
my ex got through, or my current boyfriend. He just got out of a relationship when we started seeing each other, and he was in shreds about it. And I listened to him, and I was like, oh, because I just got out of a relationship too. But I was like, let's fuck. You know, like I was happy about it.
Well,
he was not.
Yeah.
And so I listened. But then I remember saying your story about Chris reminded me. Like I did say eventually, like, cool, you're gonna have to talk to friends about this now.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
like,
I think women don't set the boundaries in the same way that men do.
Yeah.
Well, I
with
think
the ex.
even on that first date,
Yeah.
at the end of the first date,
That's
like if
very
you're
sexy.
vibing, you can set the boundary. I wouldn't recommend what I did to anybody, right?
Right.
Like I'm really grateful that it worked out, and I'm really glad. But I think that people stress out about again.
did I
wouldn't
say the wrong
recommend
thing?
it.
Did I say the wrong thing?
Right. People
Oh,
stress
yeah.
out about, did I say the wrong thing? They overthink, like, what did I do? Did I fuck it up by asking if he or she wanted a relationship too quickly? Did I fuck it up by telling them what I wanted, that I wanted kids in the next 5 years? Like, what did, but you can't say the wrong thing to the right person. I think the right person is going to want to co-create a relationship.
Yeah.
And the right person.
And if what
can
you
set
said was like
boundaries.
weird, they'd be like, wait, what do you mean? Or ask something else or say like, I talked to a friend about that or something. Like
100%.
they'll be able to handle you.
I
in a
like
beautiful
hearing
way.
about the ex. I mean, certainly on a first date, like, yeah, not like when you get far into it, like enough is enough. But
Oh, yeah.
I like it because I think, especially being in this line of work, like it gives me information that I need. When someone doesn't mention an ex at all, I find that weirder than even over talking about an ex a little bit.
Because
I'm
either
like,
that means they were poorly behaving
I
in the
just need
relationship.
a little more information about what went wrong, what kind of a person was this, what kind of a relationship that it doesn't bother me to hear about that. I want to quickly go back to something that you said earlier, like you liked the way that Chris made you feel, because so this is a pet peeve on this podcast that I have when like men write an anniversary post on Instagram.
Yeah.
It's always all about how their female partner makes them feel. Whereas when women talk about men, it's often about like, things, qualities that they hold within themselves. And I've been thinking about this a lot lately because I'm like, perhaps how someone makes you feel, like how perhaps men do have the right approach and it's women that have the wrong approach to it. Because, I'm like, well, if you just like pick someone who like, if I'm just picking someone based on like they make me feel secure and supported, it's like, maybe then who the fuck cares who they are on paper?
Right.
But like, do you have anything to speak to about that? Because it's like an obsession that I have with looking at people's anniversary posts. And when you ask a man, like, what do you love about your girlfriend or your wife? It's pretty much always how she makes me feel, which just makes me feel like the woman's role is like a more emotional support animal. And I really don't love that, but you see that a lot in heterosexual relationships.
Yeah. I think that therapy is great for men. We love men who are in therapy.
We do.
I do think that like that is men have different men were socialized with fewer emotion words, which is like something that like women have more emotional language because of the way that women are socialized versus men. I think that's interesting, could play into this, maybe not.
Right.
I think that, it's very easy to see through an Instagram post and see like, oh, I don't love that relationship dynamic that you have going on, right?
Yeah.
Like I think, a lot of my clients who are single and dating talk about just like how much they want to find a relationship. And I'm like, cool, you get to want the right relationship. You know how many of your friends are in relationships that do not feel good on the inside, who are performing to survive in that relationship, right? So I can't speak to like these exact people. I can say. Like,
I mean, a lot of them are people I don't know. Sometimes it's a celebrity. I mean, I'm talking about just really anybody.
I think that women need to focus more on like how does their person make them feel, and how can you like share about that maybe. But I do think that it is very easy to fall into an emotional caretaking role. Even for me, left unchecked, my hypervigilance, my emotional wheelbarrowing,
hypervigilance, man,
will take over, and I will like
I hate
scoop Chris. I will try to scoop Chris up and fix all of his fucking problems.
Yeah.
And that's understandable. I love him, and he's there to remind me, like, you don't have to fix this. One of
my favorite things to say to a man is, "That sounds hard. Hope it works out."
I've been like a you problem.
I've been really training myself to say that a lot lately.
Yeah. Or like too when they're venting about something or whatever, like, oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Just that.
Yeah.
Instead of like taking on the problem, because I have the hypervigilance sucks. And also, that's interesting. You said you're a little psychic, which, I totally believe, especially because like you knew with Chris, right?
Yeah.
But there's this thing, and I'm curious to see if you have it. I think I might have talked to you about this, Corinne. When I am seeing somebody or I'm like into them, I have a psychic connection with them that I almost don't want. I can tell, like, when I was, Dan, who we've had on the podcast, a comedian, a guy I've slept with that I, like, fell for. I was like, because he's so hot and just funny and charming, whatever. I fell, and we were just sleeping together. Great sex. And it doesn't even have to be great sex for this to happen. He had met somebody and he didn't tell me yet, but it was fine. We were just sleeping together. I just really liked him. I knew the second he met someone and was attracted to them. It was and he was like on the other side of the country. My partners, now my boyfriend, like there was one night where my boyfriend was like just having intense conversation with a friend. It was 3 a.m. and he was at a bar. I was at our apartment and I woke up in the middle of the night and I was like, something's wrong. And it's so annoying. Do you have that?
No.
Okay.
That sounds exhausting, though.
I hate it.
That sounds really exhausting.
Yeah, I don't know how you break free from that, but it must be some codependent thing on my part, I think.
I wonder, what do you think? Do you think it's codependence? Do you think like what?
when you said hypervigilance, like it's like I'm hypervigilant on the side, like meaning like I'm just going about my day. I can tell when I'm hypervigilant in like in a way that's bad because I feel anxious and I'm like, all right, what do we have to do here, right? Let's analyze the situation. But it's almost like, you know how like every woman when she goes on a date, she's kind of like casually afraid of being raped, but it's not like really in front of our mind. Okay. I think all women are casually afraid of like sexual assault just because it happens to all of us. Like it's so many of us it happens to.
Or murdered.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. And so, but it's not like I don't live in active fear of being raped, but like it's a side fear, you know, that's kind of always there, but like it doesn't make my day worse. It's like that. It's like this hypervigilance connection to them that is not in the front of my brain unless something happens with them. It's fucking
Do you find that it's always true?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not always exactly accurate on like what I perceive the feeling to be, but I know that if I feel a big feeling that they also have. So it
so even in that, it was like in that instance, it was heightened because like Colin didn't need your help.
No.
Right.
He was fine. He was with a friend. He was fine. He was just having a conversation.
Right.
But like every guy I've dated, when they're attracted to somebody else, but even if like my boyfriend sees somebody in the room that's super hot, I feel that he feels that they're hot and I fucking hate that.
I wonder,
Please.
I wonder, is it how he feels or you're seeing a really hot woman?
Sure.
And your brain is doing the calculus of like, he's probably attracted. I don't know, like.
Maybe.
I wonder how much of it is like.
But like with Dan, like for example, I use that example because it was a casual thing. It was just sleeping together. But like I knew, and whatever, it's fine. I was bummed, but like, it's it's not a big deal. But I knew the second.
You can feel people. Women can feel people pulling away.
Yeah,
I mean that's what it is. Even if no one says anything, like I felt people pulling away that I didn't even care that much about. You know,
right? Yeah,
You just feel even. I don't.
Well, I think it's the way we're socialized.
Yeah,
right. Like I know I was socialized to people please and caretake in order to survive and be safe, and so my eyes are on other people literally all. I've been looking at Eric.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like I was, hey Eric. I've been like, I think we were socialized to scan.
Yeah.
And that we're scanning all the time unless we're aware of it and can like set a boundary for ourselves to create some more peace.
Yeah.
So I also am thinking of the Long Island medium when you talk about
love
that.
her.
Like love Teresa.
Oh my God, her hair. Amazing,
I wish I could click the nails that I'm hearing. But she has to set boundaries with those people that are talking to her all the time. It could happen. You know what I'm saying? We've got to figure out the boundary for you to remind you that like you're safe, you're okay.
And whatever they're engaging in, none of my fucking business, frankly.
And how sad that we can't like keep our loved ones safe all the time from harm. You know, I think that that's another piece of like the hypervigilance is like being out of control.
Yeah.
And how that can be really scary sometimes, but just reminding like I'm safe, I'm here, and the right people will communicate with me and tell me if they're attracted to somebody else. And it doesn't have to be a thing.
My mantra to fix that is everything I need to know is revealed to me exactly when I need to know it. And so that usually gets me there with the boundary. Because sometimes I'm like, I'm reading a book or I'm like editing a video and I'm into it. I'm excited. I'm not thinking about the other person. And then they just fucking pop in there. And I'm like, ugh, yeah, it's so annoying.
Normal.
Yeah.
Normal. I think self-compassion would just say like, how normal of me.
Yeah,
of course I'm doing that. You know,
that is very sweet.
Yeah,
how normal
I just want to be safe. How human of me.
I do. Yeah, that's true. That's true. What if somebody doesn't know what their essence is?
Essence is for themselves or what they want.
Yeah, meaning like I love the word essence, but like I'm thinking of younger women, or at least me when I'm younger. Like now I love my essence. I fucking figured out who I am, did a lot of work, whatever.
Yeah.
But if you haven't done the work and you like, if you were to ask a lot of younger women, I feel like, what's your essence? Like, sure, a lot of them would know, but I feel like for the ones that were like, I don't know. How would you guide somebody to discover that?
Well, it is sort of amorphous, right? And I think that for me, it would start with like defining my root values. You know, I loved the book Dare to Lead by Brene Brown. In the book, she has this like really big exercise of coming into like claiming your two core values as a human being. My two core values are belonging and courage. And from those two core values, I can trace a lot about my personality. I can trace a lot about my relationships. I can like extrapolate just because I talk about this shit all the time. And I think starting there of like, what are your core values right now? They're going to change. They're going to shift and grow as you shift and grow. But like, who are you in the world? What are your two core values? And what taking that the next step, what are you currently doing or who are you currently with that align with or do not align with those core values to like start living in more alignment, you know?
I love that because I think like if you had told me you need to date someone who aligns with your core values 10 years ago, I'd be like, that sounds boring, but that's because the core values that are often offered by other people are like, you know, I really care about family, and it's like, and I don't want to sit here and be like, I don't care about family. Like obviously,
it's not top priority.
I care about family, but like building a family is not. That's not really on my agenda. And so it kind of like, it put me on the wrong path. So I would just like date people who I like their essence. But then when you finally date someone who shares your core values, and then in that, I mean like finding someone whose core values are wackadoo the way mine are, I'm like, oh, core values doesn't have to be boring, but I do agree that it feels so much different when your core values are aligned. I've dated so many people that I really like, but I often questioned whether or not they were a good person, like they were contributing to society, which I know feels like a weird and heavy thing, but like for me, it's like, I really need the person I'm dating to be making a positive, long-lasting, impactful, an impact on society. And that's a hard thing to say on a date. And there are a long list of occupations that I don't think positively contribute to society. And like right out of the gates, we're, you know, taking so many people off the list. But it's like there are certain occupations I'm like, I just couldn't date someone who does what you do for a living.
Yeah.
Hard stop.
Yeah.
So that's very interesting, the core values. And I think there's like different ways to look at it that don't feel like so boring or.
Yeah. And when your core values align, I imagine it's easier to feel free in the relationship.
100%. One of my clients who I love, and I don't know if she'll be listening to this, but I talk about her all the time. She came on my podcast, the datebrazen podcast. She needed somebody generous. And like not just generous in a friendship, generous with the world, like interested in volunteering or donating or like interested in what's going on in the world and how to make a small teeny bit like something better, right?
Yeah.
And she asked this guy she was dating, so attracted, so aligned on so many things, asked him, if you had $1 million, like where would you donate?
Great question.
That's one of the questions, right?
Yeah.
If you had $1 million, where would you donate? If you could only donate it. And he was like, haven't really thought about it. And she was like, oh, that's interesting. Yellow flag.
Yeah.
Kept dating. They had a lot of chemistry, a lot of good
Start
vibes.
thinking.
A couple of dates in, I coached her on it, and she was like, what do I do? I was like, just ask, like, is there anything like that you are interested in the world, or like anything that
like
you're
activism,
what do you passionate about? What do you care about?
Societal
like,
issues.
If you ever marched for something, would you ever march for something?
That's a great question. Have you ever marched for something?
Honestly, that's a great question to ask a guy.
You know, like absolutely. And if their
guys
answer
who
is
march,
like, LOL, like what does that mean? Like they're disqualified.
Yeah.
And his answer was, hadn't really thought about it. So she realized
it's just not even in his scope.
And if you have to be the person to introduce the concept of being generous with your time or money or resources, then that's a bless and release.
Yeah.
Because that was her desire, is to feel like inspired by her future partner.
Yes.
They don't have to be Mother Teresa.
Right.
But like inspired by, like the world is really
fucking
dark.
wild. Yeah,
and it's hard to find light. And I think that the way that we connect with one another, the way that we're thoughtful with one another, the way that we can care for one another with community care is inspiring. And she wanted to feel that.
Yeah.
And so then she blessed and released him. It was very difficult. But exactly what you're saying, like you got to know how you want to feel in the right relationship to vet people appropriately and not waste your time.
I also noticed, like in a straight relationships from our emails and friends that I've talked to, and from my older experience, like curiosity on a first date.
Yeah.
Is it equal?
Yeah.
Because so often the woman can be more curious, but also if the man is more curious about the woman, like, you know, that's just imbalance. There's an imbalance of curiosity.
Yeah. Curiosity is such a great word.
Yeah. An intrigue. Like, I want to know about you.
Yeah. There's got to be a co-creation, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's why I don't fucking care who asks who out first.
Yeah.
I don't care.
I'd be asking dudes out
like
left and right.
I
It's
was
fun.
too. And a lot of women in my comments are like, no, never, never do that because it gives the man all the power and you don't know that they're interested. And I'm just like, you think that that's the only marker of a co-created relationship is who asks whom out first?
Yeah.
Whom? I don't know. But the right relationship, the right conversations are co-created. I think the curiosity will be balanced with the right people.
Yeah.
And for the people who are like, do I give them another chance? Do I go on another date? I didn't feel chemistry. I just ask, like, were you curious about them?
Yeah.
Do you have curiosity about kissing them? They go on another date.
Right.
If you don't, then let them go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do feel like people really give up too fast. And I'm like, well, there's discernment and then there's just being hasty.
Yeah.
There's not that many people.
Yeah, it's not. We have to wrap up soon, but I wanted to ask, in your relationship that you found that seems so beautiful, do you guys fight? I know most people do. Did you have to learn how to fight? And did he ever trigger you along the way? Because if you grow up in that type of environment, a romantic relationship is going to be a magnifying glass on anything that triggers you, usually. Like, a relationship could trigger you unlike anything else can. It's kind of interesting. And what do you do in those moments, like when you get triggered?
Chris and I are so very different in how we were raised and how we communicate. And we've been together 8 years. And it's been, like, it felt great at the beginning. I've realized that, oh my God, we did not know how to fight. We didn't know how to disagree back then. And we started couples therapy a couple years ago. It's been amazing. But yeah, we didn't know how to, like, understand what the other person was really saying when we were triggered or upset. I activated him, he activated me, just because that's life.
Yeah.
And I do think that we're two human beings making a life together. It's sometimes messy. I like to say, like, if it's more easeful than not, then things are going great. You know what I'm saying? Like, and that's how I feel with Chris. Like, it's so much more easeful than not. And what was the other part of your question?
Just learning how to fight, and then what do you do when you get triggered? But I think I had couples therapy not that long ago, and it was really interesting because it does give you an excuse, like, these are all things I've wanted to say, and it's like, but Colin and I looked at each other like, we can just not pay and just say these things to each other, because that was one of the things that it was giving us personally a space to say stuff. But it's like we were talking so much she wasn't even talking, like she couldn't even chime in. So I'm like, oh, we can just talk by ourselves.
Chris and I are in an interracial relationship. He's a black man, I'm a white woman, and our couples therapist helps us to,
because that's a whole layer.
Oh my God, there are so many things that that I don't realize, that he doesn't realize.
Can you give us examples?
I think that how to deal with. I'm trying to figure out how to say this. How do I navigate people in?
I'm just thinking, like, I'm so protective of my boyfriend. If somebody was racist to them, I would lose my fucking mind on them.
Absolutely. And how do I navigate when someone says something to me that is a microaggression? And how do I really obviously setting things straight, but how do we then navigate that afterward as a couple? And how do we heal? And how can I care for him and really learn how to be anti-racist every single day? In everything that I do. And when we have children, our children will be black, and how can I learn how to practice anti-racism in our relationship, in my interpersonal relationships with, people that are from the very deep South who voted for Trump, who I am, related to in my extended family, right? So how to navigate all of that.
And then not lose your temper.
And how to be kind to each other in the process. I have a lot to learn, and he's learning how to be in a relationship with me even still. So that is just a piece of what we're navigating. I think there's also being a man and a woman. I'm also queer, and how to really navigate that. There's so much.
Every person is a walking library. We just have so many layers to us. Every individual person just has a lot of parts to themselves. That's why relationships are hard.
Just to go off what you just said, I also worry with interracial dating, I think it's also when something is happening in the world, when a big racist event is happening, how do you offer support to someone who is having just not even like a microaggression, a wildly different experience. You know, like when Roe v. Wade was overturned, like I felt like men were not great, didn't really give much to women.
Didn't say anything, yeah.
And this includes straight men and gay men, hard stop. And so that's what I often think about as far as like, you know, if I was dating a black man, how am I going to support this person when it truly feels like the world is against them?
Mm-hmm. And you're faced with evidence of it all the fucking time.
Well, and as, again, like a white woman with an immense amount of unearned privilege, like I didn't grow up afraid of the police.
Right.
I was taught to go to the police when I was in trouble as a white woman in the South.
Yeah, and you grew up going, everybody's like this, right?
Right.
And then when you
coming
learn,
into be like, oh, my husband is like actively unsafe.
Yeah.
Oh God, I would be so
Around
worried all
the
the time. And then having children, like I'm like, oh my God.
And it's a privilege to not have to had carried that burden, and it's fucking so fucked up that we didn't have to, and that it's a problem to begin with.
Yeah.
And so really like coming into realizing how important the work of like being anti-racist is, and like really being an advocate for change at any level that I can be.
Right.
And making sure he feels heard and seen.
And safe with me. And and that, you know, I love him better every single day, you know?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And he's an incredible partner to me. He's the best.
Yeah, your relationship
he's so
sounds
wonderful.
lovely.
So I think that it's multifaceted, but I love therapy. And I think that like couples therapy doesn't to me mean that like, oh shit, something's going wrong. It just means that like we're two human beings that want someone who knows how to help people come together, like help us come together even more, you know?
One thing everybody in this world has in common is we all just want to be loved. Yeah. And seen for who we are.
Absolutely.
That's it. It's very simple. Sorry.
And I think that people, you know,
sorry, I thought you were going to end the episode on that.
Oh, I mean, I didn't know if anything
and there we are.
Yet,
no, I think that the last thing I'll say is like people, you know, people who are feminists, people who are socialized as women and women who are feminists sometimes have this idea that like wanting a relationship makes you less of a feminist.
That that's
desire.
horseshit.
Right.
That's
So
such horseshit.
I would just say that people get to want the right relationship and they're whole and amazing single as they are right now, and that your desire, whatever the desire is, gets to be evidence that it exists. I think of the Wright brothers, like they didn't know a plane could fly. They had a desire, they built the thing, and they practiced and they tried and they made it exist. Your desire for more gets to be evidence that it exists, and you can't say the wrong thing to the right person. So like go get messy and like do joyful shit outside of your house and make new friends and expand your social circle and set more boundaries. And then your love life, you'll look around in a few months and be like, oh, this is actually more fun than it's not.
Yeah. I'm like, you know, almost annoyingly feminist, I would say. And I would never say it was anti-feminist to be seeking a relationship. I do think it's anti-feminist to like think that you are more valuable in a relationship though. I mean, you can recognize that you improved because of the work you did in the relationship and therefore hold more value, I would say. But like, there are just so many women who
I'm a complete person now.
Yeah, who really still hold on to that. And I'm just like, oh my God, how do we undo this? This is like exhausting for me. And I'm just, you know, being a voyeur online. But
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here. Make sure to pick up Lily's book, Thank You More Please.
I very much know why you came highly recommended by our listeners.
Yes.
This is a great conversation. Thank you for your time.
This was the first of our big 2025 recommendations, listeners ask guests. This has been Guys We Fucked the Anti. Oh, sorry. Where can we find you apart from the book?
Yeah, the book is everywhere books are sold. Audiobook, I did the audiobook. It's so fun. You can get a bonus at datebrazen.com.
Oh, nice.
Datebrazen.com. Nice.
And you can learn how to work with me there. I'm on TikTok. I'm on Instagram at datebrazen. And my podcast is the Date Brazen Podcast.
Perfect. Thank you so much for being here. This has been Guys We Fucked, the Anti-Slut Shaming Podcast. We'll talk to you next Friday.